Alright, so I'm going to show you kind of the components I use for friction fire and some of the concepts behind it. First off, we're going to use the Yucca cordage, and just a bent stick is the bow. For me, the cordage is one of the hardest things to come by, so when I do find the right type of plant at the right type of season, I make an abundance of the cordage. This particular piece snapped because I was using it while it was too dry, so you want to pre-soak your natural cordage. Yucca, just dampen it is fine. Same thing with stinging nettle cordage. And I've made plenty of friction fires with both. But the broken piece I just turned into a bracelet. Then I just tie a loop on the end, and that's so that I can loop my finger in and then apply pressure to the bow. And then once you have your bow, you're going to need, and I have a little bag of projects I've been working on. Containers are a big one. But you're going to need your bearing block. So what I like to use is a deer antler, but if I can't find a deer antler, a good hard piece of fat wood, so the center of a pine tree is good. And this one's going to need a little bit of a divot, so I'm going to find out kind of where it's comfortable in my hand, and then I'm just going to put a little divot in the fat wood. This is going to go in my upper hand, the hand that's above the friction fire. And this sap is kind of self-lubricating, but sometimes I'll try to get any kind of grease or earwax or anything you can do to lubricate a little bit more. In this case, I saved a little bit of beeswax, and I know that bees are not native to the Americas, but they are now. So I raise bees for a living. I have lots of wax, but I also find them out in the woods sometimes. So now we got our bow, our bearing block, and we're going to use this is a shard off of a box elder. Tree fell over, crinkled into thousands of pieces, and so I just stripped off a piece that fit, and I notched it out like so. So it's kind of like cut out as a V. So when it sits flat, there's a place for the ember to go. I like using a relatively thin piece of wood because there's nowhere for the heat that you're creating from the friction to dissipate to. It builds up heat a little faster. And then that notch is just about 1/4 to 1/3 the way into the initial divot. And then if I were to make a second one, same deal, kind of do that cross pattern here. Like that. And then the same notch, but on a different angle. So 2 V notches, and then you'll see that it has kind of like a bi-angle to it, so then I'll just kind of round that in. You can do this with rocks too, but it just takes more time. And then a good Mora knife will just handle that. So that's our kind of bottom undercut edge. And then the top, just pretty much going right above the V, kind of in the middle. Putting a little divot there. Using the tip of the knife to kind of shave a little dimple here. And that's how you make your depression and a place for the dust to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to create some hot dust, and then we're going to go to town. So that's the bearing block. I got a spare spindle, a little bit wider. Usually my spindles are better when they're pinky thick. This is more like my thumb thickness. So this is more of the spindle size that I'm going for, pinky thickness, and you want it to resemble a pencil. So this tapered portion here, I like a long taper so that as the spindle wears down against your bearing block, it doesn't start creating friction on the top end. It dedicates the friction to this pencil eraser end. And a lot of times I'll kind of nick at the tip of this pencil end, this eraser end, and kind of scruff it up a little bit. Like that. You can see that. Just kind of rough it up a little bit. And sometimes I'll even take and taper it all the way around the base. That way the majority of the pressure is right here on the tip of it, instead of dragging on the sides where there's more leverage against your string. And you got to keep in mind too, the string is the point of failure. So let me adjust the camera down and we'll see if we can bust out a coal and then blow it into flame. See that okay? Not quite. So I'm gonna step on there. And sometimes I like to get my boot nice and close to that guy. And then the way I wrap it is I come down over the string and loop it like that. Everyone catch that? So I'm going to come kind of down to the string and loop it so that it curly cues on the top side heading towards me. I'm going to take my bearing block and sit it right inside, sit that tip right inside there like that. And then I'm going to tilt this bow so that it's pointing down so that the string doesn't ride against itself. And really I'm focusing on the string at this point. And I'm watching to see if any smoke is starting to come up. And we're just building up our heat and making our dust pile. And being careful not to ruin our string. It takes the longest to make out of everything. And I can tell it's changing in consistency. A little bit better grip on it. It's also important to note if you need to stop and make adjustments to do that rather than ruin your piece. Still focusing on the string. And I go until I see that smoke twisting around the spindle. Like that. That's really what I'm looking for. There we go. I think we have an ember. So you gotta be steady, but a nice little ember growing on there. See that? And that was 2 fire burns off of the same hole, and I probably got 1 more. At this point, it's ideal to have something the consistency of human hair. And this grass might work just fine. I'm going to kind of wrap it around and do a bird's nest. And then kind of split it from the side and bundle it in like that. It's important to just take your time. You can transfer that ember right into that bird's nest. Like that. Flame. So the moral of this story, the conditions are beautiful out here. I've pre-collected the materials to do this. And it's practice. I'm confident that given enough time in the woods, I could just knock one of these out, but it's good to practice nonetheless. Practice your skills when times are good so that you can function highly under stress, or in times of when you just want to carry less weight. So if you could walk out in the woods and make a friction fire out of a few supplies, you know what to look for. The bent stick is everywhere, so we can kind of make something about the size of our arm. In a bent stick about the length of your arm is just fine. It doesn't take an incredibly large piece of cordage. And if you notice during the video, I only used a small portion, maybe about a third to 2/3 of the string, and it's still in relatively good shape. It's a little bit beat up, but it's still good for another few fires, and it's also kind of breaking in nicely too. I'm kind of liking it. But that's a proven friction fire set I can give to a new person who's just learning to practice their own skills. Anyway, thanks for watching. The dogs just found me. Wild Riley out.